How do you party well? I can actually answer that to a very specific degree. Spread good vibes on the dance floor, getting high off of human connection, a love challenge. There are a lot of people who do take substances or drink. Well, we don't sell alcohol. You could literally have the time of your life while saving someone's life. And we ended up raising over $40,000 for charity. So now we're collaborating with some of the biggest artists and record labels. If you set the right vibe and atmosphere, you're not gonna have 90% of the problem. The world is in your hands. I'm not gonna spoil some of the things that we do there. You have to experience it for yourself. So it can get extremely loud. I'm James Cohen. I am Australian, French, and Italian. Grew up in Sydney, Australia. Then I moved to Tokyo, Japan for 7 years. Been here in Vancouver for 7 years as well. And I run Party Well, which helps people party well. We do this through transformational festivals and products, and we raise money for great causes such as clean water wells in developing countries. A music festival is a series of events, so it can be multi-day, it can be multi-stage, and typically it involves music, dancing, and there's a third element called transformation, which is really pioneered in BC and in California, where people can attend these events and then come out of them a somewhat altered person, right? Because to an extent we're essentially just an accumulation of our experiences, and so by creating a really positive transformational experience that can inspire people at a music festival, it can shape who we are, I think, to make a positive impact in the world. So the inspiration for Impact came because, look, we provided thousands of people with clean water from our charity parties, but I realized that these transformational events could do so much more. I was really inspired by Shambhala and Burning Man and these types of events where people really come out of those experiences with altered perceptions and they start pursuing their passions and making a difference in the world. And so since what we're doing comes from such a pure place and we're donating the proceeds to charity, I knew there was so much potential there to inspire other people to take action as well. So really the purpose of Impact is to empower others to maximize their positive impact in the world. We have sort of an initiation process. So I actually have a globe that I put into your hands and I remind you that the world is in your hands and you have an incredible capability to make a positive impact in the world. And I also give people a love challenge. So I inspire them to do 10 acts of spreading love, and they physically commit to it by doing a high 10, and you say love challenge, I believe it is. So you say love challenge, you do high 10, and it's 10 acts before midnight, and they tell them the story about how, you know, I'm not going to spoil some of the things that we do there. You have to experience it for yourself, but I inspire people to spread love straight out of the gate. And that actually helps with a lot of problems. First year, we had over 85 artists play over 3 days, and we ended up raising over $40,000 for charity. We went through pretty much every challenge you could imagine, from having to change location to all the essential ingredients somehow not being available, but we all came together, this team of 100 people, to solve each problem, and we somehow pulled off a miracle. Well, if you come to Impact, you could literally have the time of your life while saving someone's life. I can't think of too many other opportunities where you can actually achieve both of those things simultaneously. But, you know, I've seen a study that it's our social connections, our support network, and our friends that is the key contributor. Once our main basic needs have been met, food, shelter, whatever, it's the #1 contributor to human happiness. And I cannot even begin to explain how many deep friends and relationships that I've formed by attending music festivals, just by going into the Shambhala group. There's several hundred people that I have, Facebook friends, but when I go back there, it's like I'm being reunited with my family that I haven't seen in a year. And I get to see them year after year, and they're always there, and just have this deep connection. And every time, you might want a door open. Like, I now just post on Facebook, I'm like, hey, who's a videographer who can, drive in a car and do something for me? Instantly I get like 10 people to comment on it, or who's a copywriter who can do this kind of. So many people support. It's a support network of people, and it's just the most fun experience I think you can have. Well, the inspiration came from when I was actually, my first fundraising experience, I was selling pizza over in my high school in Tokyo at sports games and after school, and we were raising money for a new school over in Cambodia. And then once we fundraised several $1,000s, we then flew over to physically build the foundations of the school with these kids. And while I was in Cambodia, I learned that there were other kids who weren't able to attend that school because it was their job to carry water back to their families. And this is where my eyes opened that clean water is essentially the element that holds hundreds of millions of people back from breaking out of the poverty cycle. And water changes everything: education, health, and it gives people an opportunity to do something with their lives. And I was quite literally born into water. I had a water birth in a bathtub, and I've dedicated my life towards providing the liquid of life for other people. Well, it starts with the idea, right? It starts with why I want to organize an event, the effect that I want it to have. Sometimes it starts with a theme, sometimes it starts with a collaboration. We threw impact because we really wanted to inspire people to make a positive impact in the world. And so that's really the first step. And then the second step is the venue, because without a venue you can't really do anything. So whether if that's booking a venue over at UBC that we could do for free as a student club, or if it's on private land as a music festival, we need a larger area. The second step is the location, and then the third step is really just rallying the team. It's bringing the people together. It takes a big team of people to throw an event successfully. For Impact Festival, we had nearly 100 people involved, and it was mostly volunteers. We have a core team as well, which is broken into marketing and sales, both digital and physical marketing, and then we have a logistics team, more so on the operations side, and we have a production team as well. I really have to commend Riley Arnold from Dusk to Dawn Productions from really taking on the role of bringing in all these phenomenal artists. And in terms of compensation, it really more depends on the connection that we have to the artist as opposed to size. Like, we've had huge artists like Ikali and Eminence and Aerocore just come through to our events completely on a volunteer basis just to support the event. And if we can directly reach out to either an artist or an artist manager, we found that they're willing to contribute to the cause, whether that be completely volunteering or discounting their rates substantially in order to make it feasible for us to make it happen. But we also do like to support artists however we can, whether that be through all of the branding outpush that we can do to support them, and we obviously have compensated artists as well to pull off the 85 that came through, and there's a lot of expenses that go into that. So sometimes it's reaching out to a booking agent, sometimes it's the manager, or sometimes it's the artist directly. Typically, our events are able to raise about 50% of the total revenues going directly to the charities. And that's for one-off, one-night events. Whereas this, music festivals actually typically in the industry don't make money for 4 to 5 years. That's the industry average. So they typically have venture capital investments, and they're able to continually make a loss until they're doing really well. And we have a very different model. We basically bootstrap this ourselves, and so we had to be very resourceful in order to actually make it happen and still raise funds. And it's actually due to a foundation called the Enough Foundation that we were actually able to raise that 40K. Some brands have thrown, whether that be funds or product our way, in-kind sponsorship, which we can use to sell and then generate funds that way. But it mostly has been bootstrapped. It's mostly the organizers coming together to make it happen. happen. And initially when I started Party Well about 5 years ago, some family tossed in some money too to make that initial big event happen. But since then we've basically just been reinvesting, and the organizers kind of doing what we can to make the dream happen. I can actually answer that to a very specific degree. It's 85 decibels is where you have, 85 decibels is safe actually. That's where you have 2 hours of safety. And then if you go beyond that to 90, I believe you had about 1 hour of safety, and then 100 you have like 15 minutes. So it's really a sliding scale. That said, PK sound on full blast is beyond 120 decibels. So it can get extremely loud, and that's why, when we first brought PK sound to UBC campus, as a safety measure, we gave these foam squishy earplugs to every single person who walked in the door. And then I walked around 5 minutes later, I noticed people were just taking them out because they came there to hear the music, right? And the foam earplugs were dampening the sound, so they couldn't hear a specific a significant portion of the sound. So we looked at the alternatives and what was out there, and we discovered high fidelity earplugs, and we also discovered that they weren't distributed where they need to be. And a lot of people don't even know that this exists. So that's when we became very creative in raising awareness about it. So now we're collaborating with some of the biggest artists and record labels in order to spread the awareness component, and then we're also distributing them in person at nightclubs so that people can get the full audio experience when they're at events, but then also protect their hearing from the damage. Yeah, I'm seeing more and more so a trend towards this transformational festival. I think that these are really the ones that end up surviving long term. If you're doing a music festival that is purely just the lineup and pretty much nothing else, it's not about the culture, it's not about the art, it's not about the overall experience and what you offer there in terms of adding value to those people's lives and that experience that they can have, they tend to not last very long. We've seen so many festivals just go bankrupt because they're mostly a lineup musical based festival, and the artists are a key component, don't get me wrong, but it's really important to add other things to the experience. So for example, Shambhala, they have the Shambassadors. I'm actually a Shambassador supervisor, and what we do is the goal is to just ensure that people have the best time possible. So we give out challenges so they interact with people. We spread good vibes on the dance floor and around the festival, and we give out different things like that. And it's really this culture reinforcement and this transformational aspect with the workshops that you can actually integrate that allows these festivals to stand out and builds a strong connection so people come back year after year. It's kind of a reality, there are a lot of people who do take substances or drink or end up not partying well and passing out. That said, it's not everyone who does that. There's actually a group called Vive, V-Y-V-E, started by the brilliant Jacques Martiquet, who is all about getting high off of human connection. He has these amazing activities that can connect people and bond them together, and through sing-alongs and touch and different activities can actually bring out that natural euphoria that can make people feel so incredible. And we brought him through Last Impact, and we're definitely doing it next year if we can. And it's about doing things in moderation and smartly. And so we have a blog series on the Party Well website that gives people a step-by-step on how to not do that. So at Impact Festival, we actually had 7,000 lightning bolts pass through the festival. One of the reasons why I have lightning tights on right now, okay? There was a lightning storm that passed through the festival, and we had to shut everything down, the music, everything. Fortunately, only one goat got electrocuted. Everyone was safe. We had measures to keep everyone safe, and that's why we shut up all the electricity, moved away from the metallic objects, and the silver lining to that actually is everyone formed these little circles and they got together, and we had these little ceremonies and these little bonding circles, and so many people have told me and my friends that Impact Festival was actually the best festival that they've ever been to, and they've been to all the big ones. And I think there was actually these experiences that bonded people together in these small tight-knit circles that otherwise isn't really possible. So I thank the lightning for making that happen. How do you party well? Like I said, you have the time of your life while saving someone's life, and you can't have the time of your life if your hair is being held back because you're puking into a toilet, right? So it's about being smart, you know, it's about drinking water continually. You know, when people are hungover the next day, it's because they're dehydrated. So you need to drink water throughout the night, and you know, obviously we don't recommend it. If you're going to choose to take substances, you can't combine certain things. Like alcohol, for example, does not go with pretty much all of the other things that people could take. So it's about being aware of what doesn't go well, and also about knowing the alternatives that are out there for you. You know, like getting high off of Human Connection and Vive. And sometimes, you know, you can do things in moderation. And if you're connecting with people, you can still have the best time. And another part of safety is harm reduction. So we take harm reduction very seriously. You know, we have a harm reduction team at our festivals, which is basically ensuring that people are being safe and are being smart about their decisions. And it's also about supporting them and not judging people. So we have open drug testing, actually, so you can detect exactly what is in a substance. Often when people end up, you know, dying at these types of events, it's because they're taking something that ends up being something else, and they don't know the danger of that. So for example, fentanyl is a substance that's in a lot of drugs right now, and there's even carfentanil, which is even more potent. A tiny little speck can end someone's life if you don't have a kit to revive them. And so so now it's actually available in BC. It's become fully legalized, where they can have these open testing stations, and that's a part of harm reduction as well. You know, I think obviously security is important, and so is medical. We had paramedics on site with an ambulance. We fortunately didn't know how to use it, but it's important to just prepare for those things. If you set the right vibe and atmosphere, you're not going to have 90% of the problems, you know. And also at Impact Festival, we don't sell alcohol. That was a big decision that we had a lot of debate over, because it can be a big revenue generator, right? But actually, if you speak to security professionals, the main problem is alcohol. When people are, you know, drinking excessively, that's where a lot of the violence and fights come in. Yeah, so I also really want to empower other people to organize more impactful events as well. I've seen a lot of charity parties that have popped up and unfortunately haven't had the traction that I know that they could have if they've learned some of the things that I've learned over the past 5 years. So now I'm also launching a series that's interviewing some of the best festival organizers on the planet and people from my team, just to disseminate as much of this knowledge as humanly possible, so that you, if you're watching this, you can also throw an impactful event. So stay tuned for that. It's Partywell Official on Instagram and just Partywell on Facebook. We're going to be posting a lot of content that can empower you to maximize your positive impact, however that may be, if it's through events or whatever your passion calls you to do.